Once upon a time, in the charming village of Miraluz, there was a magical land where Christmas was not just a date, but the beating heart of all existence. In Miraluz, everything seemed perfect in the eyes of those who visited. Twinkling lights, carefully decorated pine trees, and the scents of cinnamon and hot chocolate filling the air. But for the locals, the reality was a little more complex. Beneath the layers of snow and Christmas sparkle, there were stories of struggle, self-acceptance, and often resentment. The protagonist of our story was Elias, a young elf who had been born different. While the other elves of Miraluz spent their days busy with mundane tasks, building toys, wrapping presents, and decorating the streets, Elias had an inner glow that no one could ignore. It wasn't something visible to the naked eye, but when he entered any space, his presence illuminated even the darkest corners. There was something about him that made people feel more alive, and that was both a gift and a curse. From an early age, Elias felt that he had a special connection with the essence of Christmas. He could hear the whispers of the wind, as if the stars themselves were talking to him, guiding him towards something greater. One night, while walking through the snowy woods, he felt an inexplicable call. It was as if the whole universe was waiting for him to realize the power he carried. That night, Elijah had a dream. He saw a bright star that seemed to be slowly fading. A soft but firm voice echoed, "Elijah, you are the one chosen to restore the star of forgiveness. Your light is needed to bring hope and reconciliation back to Miraluz. But beware, your journey will be challenging, for your brilliance will reveal the shadows of those who cross your path." Upon awakening, Elias felt something change inside him. He knew he was different, but for the first time he recognized that this difference was a gift, not a flaw. His inner light was not just something he carried, but a responsibility he had to use to transform the world around him. Not everyone in Miraluz celebrated this discovery. Many elves, who lived comfortably in their routines, began to look at Elias with suspicion. Why did he seem so special? Why should he carry this mission, while they spent years fulfilling their duties without ever receiving any recognition? One elf in particular, Octavian, was especially critical. He had been trained to be the leader of the elves, but next to Elijah, he felt small and irrelevant. "Do you think you're better than us, Elias?" said Octavian, with a tone that mixed jealousy and anger. "You're just a naive young man who thinks he can save the world with lights and smiles." Elias, although hurt, realized that Ottavio's attitude wasn't really about him. It was a reflection of Ottavio's insecurities, his internal struggle with his own worth. This understanding was both liberating and challenging. He knew that, in order to fulfill his mission, he would have to learn to carry the weight of hatred and misunderstanding, without letting it dim his light. As he walked through the village, Elias remembered something he had heard from his grandmother, one of the wise women of Miraluz. "When you recognize your light, Elias, it will become a mirror for others. Some will see your light and be inspired to find their own. Others, however, will feel uncomfortable, because your light will illuminate the shadows they prefer to hide." Elijah began to understand that the awakening of his potential was not just about him. It was a call to be strong, even when the world around him tried to pull him down. It was about embracing who he was and, in doing so, giving permission for others to embrace their light too, even if it meant facing initial resistance. Recognizing one's inner potential is a transformative moment, but it doesn't come without challenges. Those who shine inevitably expose the shadows of others, and this can generate discomfort and resistance. Elijah is a reflection of how we can all be called to recognize our gifts, even though we know that our light can disturb those who are not yet ready to find their own. There was something about Elijah that was impossible to ignore. It wasn't just the metaphorical glow he carried. It was the way he made people feel. When Elias entered a room, the atmosphere changed. The children laughed more. The lights seemed to shine more brightly, and even the bells that decorated the streets seemed to ring in harmony with his presence. But this energy was not received unanimously. There were those who looked at Elias with admiration, like Maria, a sweet elf who spent her days looking after the village animals. "Elias, you have something special," she said, while feeding a small deer. "When you're around, I feel like Christmas is never far away. It's as if your presence is a reminder of all that is good." On the other hand, there were those who felt uncomfortable. For them, Elias was not a gift, but a mirror that exposed their own insecurities. One such individual was Fernando, the village blacksmith. Fernando was known for his hard work and dedication, but also for his bitterness. He felt that he was never recognized for what he did, and Elias's presence only intensified this feeling. "Why does everyone talk about him like he's special?" muttered Fernando, as he hammered iron in his workshop. "I work every day, but nobody looks at me like that. What does he have that I don't?" Elias began to realize that his presence was both a gift and a challenge. He wanted to bring light and joy to everyone, but he understood that not everyone was ready to receive it. During a meeting in the central square, where the elves were discussing preparations for Christmas, the tension became evident. "Why was Elijah chosen for this mission?" asked Octavian, with a challenging tone. "What makes him so special? Everyone here works hard, and they've never asked for recognition." Before Elias could answer, Maria intervened. "Maybe it's because he's not looking for recognition. He just is who he is, with no pretensions." Mary's words touched Elijah deeply. He knew that his presence was remarkable, but not because of anything he had achieved or done. It was simply a manifestation of who he was, a reflection of his connection to something greater. As he walked through the village, Elias began to notice patterns. People who were aligned with his own light and purpose seemed to be drawn to him in a positive way. They felt inspired, as if his presence gave them permission to shine too. But those who were trapped in their own shadows or internal struggles reacted in the opposite way. They avoided Elijah, talked about him behind his back, or even openly showed hostility. Elijah began to question, "Am I doing something wrong? Is my presence causing more harm than good?" It was then that his grandmother appeared again in his mind, like a comforting memory. She always said, "Elias, your light is not a burden. It is a blessing. Those who reject it are not rejecting you, but the part of them that is not yet ready to shine." Elijah began to accept that his presence was a divine gift. He had no control over how others reacted, but he could control how he responded to those reactions. He decided that instead of trying to please everyone, he would remain true to himself and his mission. He understood that for some, his light would be a source of comfort and inspiration. For others, it would be a challenge, a reminder of the parts of them that needed to be healed. Elias's remarkable presence reminds us that when we are aligned with our purpose, we don't go unnoticed. Our energy can transform environments, but it can also challenge those who have not yet found their own light. This duality is a natural part of the path, and accepting it is essential to continuing our journey. As Elijah advanced on his journey, his light continued to attract both admiration and opposition. The village of Miraluz, once a seemingly united community, began to show cracks. The reactions of the other elves varied. Some were inspired by Elias's courage and wanted to follow him, while others, like Octavian and Ferdinand, persisted in questioning his ability and worth. But Elias knew that his mission went beyond the acceptance or judgment of others. He had been called to something greater, and that calling required resilience, a quality he would come to understand in depth. Elias faced his first great challenge in the Forest of Shadows, a mystical and feared place that marked the edge of Miraluz. It was there that he believed the star of forgiveness was hidden, but it was also a place full of dangers. The tall trees blocked out the sunlight, creating a cold and oppressive environment. Upon entering the forest, Elias was immediately overcome with doubt. The wind whispered words that seemed to reflect his insecurities. "You're not strong enough. Why do you think you've been chosen? They're right to doubt you." He paused for a moment, feeling the weight of those words, but then remembered the promise he had made to himself, to keep moving forward, even when things seemed impossible. He took a deep breath and took another step, and then another. As Elias faced the obstacles of the forest, his journey began to impact others in Miraluz. Maria, the kind elf who had always believed in him, decided to take action. Inspired by Elias's determination, she gathered a small group of villagers to pray and send him positive energy. "He's out there for all of us," she said. "If he can face his fears, we can face ours too." At the same time, Otavio and Fernando, who remained resentful, began to notice something different. Despite their criticism and opposition, Elias hadn't fought back once. He hadn't attacked or tried to justify himself. This silent resilience began to baffle them. "How does he do it?" muttered Fernando, not realizing that Elijah's strength was showing him a mirror of his own weaknesses. After hours in the forest, Elias reached a clearing where he met the guardian of the star, a mysterious and imposing figure who emanated power and authority. The guardian held a glowing staff and looked at Elias with intensity. "Do you really believe you are worthy of this mission?" asked the guardian. "Your own companions doubt you. Why don't you doubt it too?" Elias felt the weight of the question. It was true that he didn't have all the answers. It was true that he felt fear and sometimes even doubt. But he also knew that his mission was greater than his insecurities. With a firm voice, he replied, "I'm not perfect, but I know I've been called to this. The light inside me is not mine. It is a gift, and I will use it, even if I stumble along the way." The guardian smiled, and the staff in his hands began to glow more brightly. True strength is not to never doubt, but to continue even in the midst of doubt. You've passed the test, Elias, but there is still more to come. As Elias continued his journey, news of his bravery began to spread around the village. But curiously, not everyone was impressed. Some people, consumed by their own insecurities, began to spread rumors. When Elijah returned to the village, he invited everyone to gather their light around the star. Even those who criticized him, like Octavian and Ferdinand, decided to take part. When they combined their forces, the star lit up, illuminating Miraluz like never before. The contrast between light and darkness is essential for growth. Elias reminds us that darkness is not something to be feared, but an opportunity for transformation. With the star of forgiveness shining again, Miraluz was transformed. It wasn't just physical light that illuminated the village, but a new understanding. Each inhabitant, previously divided by criticism and insecurity, now saw their own importance in the great plan. Elijah, with his simplicity and courage, had fulfilled his mission, to remind everyone that the true light did not come from outside, but from within. "Being chosen doesn't mean being perfect," said Elias at his last meeting with the villagers. "It means being willing to walk, even in the midst of criticism, doubts, and challenges. It means trusting that your light, however small it may seem, can transform everything around you." The village celebrated not only the return of the star, but also reconciliation, renewal, and the acceptance that everyone, in some way, was a bearer of light. The shadows that once divided the village were now seen as part of everyone's journey. Like Elijah, we are all chosen in some way. The journey can be lonely, full of challenges and misunderstandings, but it is never in vain. Every step we take in faith helps to ignite not only our own light, but also that of those around us. If you feel that your light sometimes bothers you or is misunderstood, remember, it's not about you. It's about the transformation your presence brings about. God calls us to illuminate, even when we are challenged by darkness. I want to invite you to try the devotional, The Chosen 40 Days with Jesus. This devotional guide was created to help us understand our purpose and strengthen our relationship with God. During these 40 days, you will be inspired to reflect on your journey as a chosen one and to renew your hope in God's plan. I'd love to hear how this message has touched you. Write in the comments, "I am chosen and I accept my mission." Share your experiences and how you face the challenges of being a light in the world. Let's build a community of support and encouragement together. With love, George, your spiritual leader.